Hello, welcome back to the lecture series on microeconomics. We have been discussing the core theme of microeconomic theory, which is price and markets. So, how price is determined in market? Back in 1776, Adam Smith wrote about a very simple market model, where he told us that even if there are millions of buyers and sellers in the market, it may seem like a chaos, but actually even through a chaos the market will reach an equilibrium. By equilibrium he means that market will clear. So, there will be a price at which the quantity demanded will be equal to the quantity supplied, and that is market equilibrium in Adam Smith's world. Now, what is equilibrium? Equilibrium is a state of no change. This is kind of optimal state. So, one can say that if a person, an economic agent or an economic entity reaches a situation which is best attainable given the resource constraints and the current conditions, then there is no need to deviate from that situation. Hence, that situation would be called an equilibrium. So far we have seen the concept of price, equilibrium and market. Now, let us look at the working of price system or a market mechanism through a graphical illustration. It will help us to understand how market works in Adam Smith's world. Adam Smith talked about invisible hands in his book. What are these invisible hands? They are the demand and supply functions in the market. So, before we draw a graph to explain the simple market model proposed by Adam Smith, let us have definition for demand and supply. So, what do we mean by demand and supply? Demand curve or demand function gives us the relationship between quantity of a good demanded by consumers and the price of that particular good. And generally a demand curve is downward sloping, means that as the price goes up, demand for a commodity goes down. By supply curve, we mean a relationship between the quantity that the producers are willing to sell and price of that particular commodity, and in general the relationship between these two variables is positive. That means that if we observe a higher price, then we also observe a higher quantity put forward by the sellers to sell in the market. So, now let us draw a diagram with these invisible hands and let us see how market clears. Along the horizontal axis, I measure the quantity bought and sold denoted by Q, and along the vertical axis I measure the unit price of the commodity, which is denoted by P. From the discussion on demand and supply, we can write a simple form of demand function, quantity demanded as a function of its own price. Similarly, we can also write S as another function, quantity supplied is another function of the market price that is observed. Now, let us plot these two functions. So, we have these downward sloping demand function, say dd prime, and we have this upward sloping supply function S prime, and Adam Smith says that these are the invisible hands, and when market clears, the market clearance occurs at the intersection of the demand and supply curve. So, basically at the intersection of these two curves, equilibrium price or market clearing price and quantity are obtained. So, let us denote that equilibrium quantity or market clearing quantity as Q star and the price as P star. Now, why P star and Q star are equilibrium prices and quantity? Let us check. So, we have to prove that this is an optimal state from where either the buyer or the seller has no incentive to deviate. So, let us deviate from the optimal price or equilibrium price P star and see what happens. So, let us consider two cases where, to start with, we assume a higher price P prime and let us see what happens at this price. So, note that at this higher price P prime, there is excess supply in the market of the magnitude this. This is excess supply as there is glut of supply in the market. This will create a negative pressure or downward pressure on the price, and the price will fall because the seller will think that okay, it is better to reduce the price a bit and sell the quantity or some of the quantity rather than selling it not at all. Now, let us look at the other case where we consider a price which is lower than the equilibrium price, say P double prime, and let us study what will happen at a lower price. Here we can see that at a lower price P double prime, there is excess demand for the commodity in the market. So, there is shortage of the commodity. At price P double prime, there is excess demand in the market and buyers are ready to pay more to have more units of the good. So, in that case, there will be an upward pressure on the price. Sellers will say this is a very profitable situation for them because they can charge higher price. So, in that case, they will raise the price, and finally, we can see that although we have deviated to P prime and P double prime, but in both cases we are going to return to the market equilibrium price P star, and that is why we call that this is an equilibrium from where deviation is not profitable. Let us now study how price system or market mechanism helps an economy to take a call on resource allocation problem. Let us start with a simple case where the consumer consumes only two goods. Suppose we are considering rice and wheat. Now, with time, if there is a change in taste and preference, then that will be reflected through the demand function. So, let us assume that with passage of time, the consumers in an economy let us assume that in an economy there are consumers consuming both wheat and rice. Now, let us also assume that with time there is a change in taste and preference and the consumer started preferring rice more over wheat. Now, in that case, how the economy is going to react, how the economy is going to take decision on resource allocation issues, let us study through a diagram. So, in this case we are going to study the case of rice. So, I am denoting QR as the quantity of rice being bought and sold in the market, and price of R rice, PR denotes the price of rice. So, there will be the demand function for rice, which is denoted by say D1, and there will be supply function which is denoted as S1. This is like period 1. Now, let us also draw the diagram for wheat. So, along the horizontal axis I am measuring the quantity of wheat denoted as QW, and then along the vertical axis I am measuring the price of wheat, which is PW. So, we have to plot the demand and supply curve again. So, let us have the demand function, and that is say DW1, and let us call it DR1, and let us also superimpose the supply function. Now, let us call that supply of wheat denoted by S1W. Now, as there is a change in preference, the consumer has started to demand more for rice at the given price. So, then what will change in this particular diagram? So, let us first mark the equilibrium price and quantity, that is the initial condition to start with. Now, at this equilibrium price P star R, suppose the consumers have started demanding more rice because there is a change in taste and preference. If that is the case, then we are talking about a parallel shift in the demand function, and let us have this new demand function denoted by DR2. So, of course, we can see here that there is some excess demand in the market, and hence there will be an upward pressure in the market of rice, and the equilibrium price will rise. So, the new equilibrium price will be at the new intersection point between the new demand curve and the original supply curve. Right. Now, what will happen in the case of wheat? So, let us first look at the equilibrium price and quantity figures to start with. Q star W is the equilibrium or market clearing quantity, and then P W star is the equilibrium price to start with. Now, in this case what will happen at the equilibrium price, there will be a decrease in demand for wheat because of the taste and preference change. So, in that case the demand function will parallelly shift downward, and let us call this new demand function dW2. So, what will happen now? there is some excess supply of wheat in the market, and of course, there will be some downward pressure due to a glut of wheat supply in the market. So, there will be a fall in the equilibrium price. So, the new equilibrium price will be obtained at the new intersection between the new demand curve and the original supply curve, right. As the prices of these two commodities change, this will send signal to the factor markets as well. Why? Because now the farmers will see that cultivation of rice is more profitable than the cultivation of wheat. So, land, labor and all other agricultural resource inputs will now flow from the wheat sector to the paddy sector. Let us now discuss another related concept called circular flow of market economy. This discussion is very important to understand the concept of general equilibrium in microeconomic theory. This discussion will show you how markets are interrelated. So, as of now there are two boxes I have drawn. So, this is the lower box and this signifies the producers or the farms in the economy, and there is this upper box which denotes the households which are basically consumers, but note that they are also the owners of the resources. By resources I mean that it can be labor, it can be capital. The households will supply these resources, labor, capital, etc., to the farm, and this is called supply of factor inputs. Why they will approach farm or producers? Obvious reason, because the producer of the farm needs to produce some output, and for that they need these resources or factor inputs. So, of course, there is this arm which represents the demand for factor inputs, and this is flowing from the producer or farms box to the households box. So, this is demand for factor inputs. As the household or the consumer supplies these scarce resources to the farm or producer, in return they earn income. So, for labor the worker receives wage, the person who has saved and invested the capital to the farm, he earns rate of interest, etc. So, these are the factor earnings. Now, what will the household or the consumer do with these factor earnings? Of course, they need to consume, and they will now demand for goods and services. Now, a critical question arises, how these returns to factor inputs or resources are determined. So, these are determined through a market, and that market is called the factor input market, where this demand for factor inputs meets the supply of factor inputs and equilibrium price and quantities are figured out. So, this pink box you can call this as factor market. So, there will be a flow of factor earning from the producer box to the household box, and this is called factor earnings or income. Now, with this income, the household, they are going to start demanding for final goods and services to consume. So, there will be a flow of demand and there will be another flow which will denote the supply, because the producer after producing some final goods and services of course has to sell it to earn some money, and he will sell this to the household or the consumer sector. So, this will be the supply of final consumption goods. So, now the income which goes to the household from the producer or farm box now comes back to the farm again, and this is through the expenditure route. Now, there is a market called factor market, where this demand and supply for factor inputs interact with each other. There will be another such market which is for the final goods and services, and it is there where this demand for these finished final goods meet the supply of these finished final goods, and the equilibrium price or market clearing price is obtained. So, this market is called the goods market. With this discussion, we conclude the theme prices, markets and equilibrium. Now, let us move to a different theme. The next theme is theory and models. What is a theory? Theory is a set of explanations and predictions regarding real life objects that we observe around us. Often theories are represented through simplified models. What is a model? So, model is an abstraction which permits scientists to study a real life phenomenon in a simplified setting. Now, a theoretical economic model has 4 components, and let us have a look at these 4 components. The first component is called data, the second component is called postulates, third component is assumptions, and the last component is decision variable. Let us now explain these 4 components one by one. What is data? Data is exogenous parameter used in the modeling exercise. These are held fixed so that the economic agents cannot tamper with the magnitude of these factors. What is postulate? postulate is universal type statements on the behavior of the constructed abstract objects. What is assumption? Assumption is basically the link between the real life object and the constructed object. Now, the last one is decision variable. What is a decision variable? Decision variables are the variables of interest to these constructed economic objects and the economists. So, an economic agent or a constructed object basically tries to optimize given the resource constraint, and the person or the economic entity is basically looking for the optimized value of these variables, and so are the economists. So, these are basically the control variables in a model. So, with this let us finish for today. We will continue with the discussion in the next lecture. We will continue with the discussion on themes of microeconomics in the next lecture.